Hi everyone, this is a video looking at functional skills, and today what we're going to do is specifically look at English and Maths and how we can bring those two skills together to help improve both individual subjects. Now it doesn't matter if you're just studying English or if you're just studying Maths, both of these subjects have a massive role to play on the courses that we study. One more thing before we progress, guys, it'd be really helpful if you liked and subscribed. It really does help us out when you do so, and it gives me an indication of the kind of things that you really want to be seeing in these videos. So why is English and Maths important? So first things first then. So Maths is a key skill because you need it to manage things like finances. So even if you're not studying a course in Maths, you will need it in your everyday lives. So thinking about things like getting a mortgage, even just buying and selling things, or even something more complicated like getting a mobile phone contract, a car contract, or anything like that can be quite difficult to navigate through. English will help you to communicate effectively. Now, a lot of people do ask me all the time, why do I need to study English when I can already speak it? Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can communicate within English. There's things like body language that is very important. There is things like your reading and your writing skills as well. So that is something that's very important, not just for everyday life, but also the fact that we have to go through exams, apply for jobs. A lot of these things require a lot of verbal and written skills as well. It is also a really key skill, and it's always something that's valued by employers. So it doesn't matter if you're going actually into English or Maths in terms of the actual industry that you want to focus on in terms of your career, it's still going to be something that could potentially impress a future employer. So it's really important that we improve and develop these skills as best as we can. So first thing we're going to do is just a quick game to get us thinking about English and Maths. It's a really good game to just get us warmed up. So what I want you to do is look at the Scrabble tiles and attempt the challenges that follow. Now, I don't know if you've played Scrabble before, but you have a number of different letters. You can see there in the first row, for example, we've got M, C, Y, and O. And each letter has been assigned a number, and this number says the value of it. So for example, there's not many words that have the letter Y in it. So if you're able to come up with a word with the letter Y in it, you'd also get more points. So it'd be worth the value of 4 if you were able to use that one. So now we've got our Scrabble tiles. So what I want you to do is have a look at the challenges on the right hand side. So first thing I'd like you to try and do is use the tiles to make the longest word possible. Okay, so this is really good in terms of improving your vocabulary, a real important element when you're thinking about your writing assessment, whether it be functional skills, ESOL, or even GCSE. Once you've done that, I want you to try and add up the score for each word and try and figure out what is the highest score. So for example, let's say you came up with a word like table, not that table is available in there necessarily, but then we've got the T, A, B, L and E. There you go, it is available. So the T would give us 1 mark, the A would give us 1 mark, the B would give us 3 marks, the L would give us 1 mark, and the E would give us 1 mark. So that's giving us a total of 7. Now once you've done that and had a play around with it, again it's a really good thing to play around with. Try and use the answers you've come up with to predict the focus of the video. What kind of topic is it that we're going to be looking at? If you can figure that out now, it might help you out, because that is what our writing, our reading, and even our math skills are going to be centered towards as well. So teacher's top tip, remember when you're playing this game, you can use each tile more than once. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reveal the answers. If you need a bit more time, please feel free to pause it now. But we're going to go ahead and look at the answers on the next part of the video. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the answers below. So these were the ones that I had in mind. The first one is mobile, the second one is costly, and the third one is years. So try and think about what that actually means in terms of the focus of today's lesson. Obviously we're thinking about mobile phones and the fact that they can be quite an expensive thing and quite a horrible thing for a lot of people to negotiate if you're not too sure about the ins and outs of specific deals. Before we move on, I'd like to try and stretch and challenge yourself and think, how can maths and English help you with this topic? So how would it help you to do something as everyday, run of the mill as getting a mobile phone contract? Moving on. Look at the advert below and think about which one is the best deal. So if you have a look at the actual phones on the left hand side there, you can see the two phones we're going to be talking about have been changed ever so slightly so that we're not copywriting anyone. So we're looking at the T Phone Plus and the Samsung A9. So what we're going to see now is a little bit of text to tell us about each deal, and then we need to think about which one will be the best deal and try and absorb as much information in preparation for some questions that will follow. So for image 1, that would refer to the T Phone Plus. It says, want a phone that comes with a shed load of data? Well then, the new T Phone Plus is for you. The phone boasts a massive 4032 x 3024 pixel that will make your photos look better than ever before. Grab this deal now and get 25% off the price. Image 2. At Samsung, we know how important having a long battery life is. Our state-of-the-art design means you will always be equipped to face any challenge that comes your way. Always misplacing your phone? With our one-time offer, get a free Samsung smartwatch to link with your phone. Retail price £180. So if you just think about which one will be the better deal first of all, you can see there for the T Phone Plus that it is costing £600 to buy that phone. However, if you look back at image 1, it does say that in the actual text that you get 25% off the price. For the Samsung, it's $650. However, you do get a free watch which is valued at £180. So you need to have a think which one will be the better deal, which one will give you the better options in terms of the phone package you'd like to select. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to look through a couple of questions just to test your comprehension. So if you do need to come back and look back over this text, then please feel free to do so. Quickfire questions. Answer the questions below to help demonstrate your understanding. Number 1. What is meant by a shed load of data? Number 2. Which phone has the cheapest deal? If you feel like you need to justify your answer here, please feel free to put an extra line when you're writing your response just to say why you think it is the cheapest deal. Number 3. What deforest technique has been used in the advert for phone 1? If you're not too sure what we mean when we talk about deforest techniques are a really important acronym that you need to know about persuasive writing, and if you're not too sure, then please do check out one of our other videos that go into it in more detail. Number 4. What is the main feature of the Samsung A9? So when we say the feature, what is its selling point? What is the thing that it's really bragging about that mobile phone? And number 5, last one. Identify the deforest technique that has been used in both adverts. If you need to pause the video and take more time, please feel free to do so. We're now going to jump ahead and we're going to look through the answers. Class feedback. Check your understanding against the answers below. So for number 1 then, the question was, what is meant by a shed load of data? So when the advert says a shed load of data, it means that the phone has a lot of mobile data. Now, if you're unsure about this or confused or you haven't heard it before, don't worry too much, because a phrase like a shed load of data isn't actually what we'd consider formal writing. It's actually slang or colloquial writing. So it might be that you haven't heard this before, but it's still a good thing to know to help understand the kind of deals that are available. So number 2 then was asking us which one was the cheapest deal. So the T Phone Plus is the cheapest deal, even with the £180 value of the smartwatch. If you actually look back at the deal, it was £600 for the T Phone with a 25% discount. So that's where you need to think about embedding that use of maths and really thinking about the kind of equations that you need to use in order to work out the best deal. Now, number 3 said, what deforest technique has been used in the advert for phone 1? And the deforest technique that's been used is a statistic, and again the statistic would be the S that we take from the acronym deforest. Number 4, what is the main feature of the Samsung A9? The main feature of the Samsung A9 is its long battery life. That was the main thing it was trying to sell within its advert. And then final one, number 5, which deforest technique has been used in both adverts? So that's really the key point to this question. It has to be a deforest technique that's not only been used in the first advert but also in the second advert as well. So for number 5 then, both adverts have used rhetorical questions. If you need to spend a bit more time, check your answers, please feel free to do so. We're now going to move on and start thinking about how to use our maths and English a little bit more effectively. So finding the best deals. On the next part of the video, you're going to answer some maths questions to help you understand how to actually break down a mobile phone contract or a mobile phone deal and actually help get the best deal for you. Now, what we need to think about is what kind of skills do you need to find the best deal. So it can seem quite simple, but when you really think about it, it is quite complicated. So in terms of maths, for example, you need to be able to understand percentages. If we think about the T-Phone Plus, for example, you had to figure out what was 25% of 600, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially if you're actually in a shop and you're getting a bit flustered and the sales assistant might be, forcing you along a little bit. Managing your finances. So this is the thing a lot of people don't think about. It can be very interesting to go for the most modern phone, for example, but can we always afford it with everything else that gets thrown onto the actual charges as well? And calculating the final cost. So a lot of phones come with extra added bits and added bundles and data. What will it be to actually figure out how much you will pay for each month for your phone? In terms of English, you need to be able to skim and scan information, so things like reading through small print, reading about all the data, the minutes and things like that that come with a mobile phone contract. Selecting and synthesizing information, so that's about picking out the key details and understanding the main points. And last one, use appropriate language to give advice. So further on in the video, what we're going to do is we're going to think about actually attempting a writing response for functional skills level 1 and level 2, and then we need to think about how to actually advise someone about a mobile phone contract. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to go through some maths questions in the next part of the video. Test your understanding against the questions below. So now we're going to have a look at our maths questions then. Again, there's still an element of English in here as well, so that's why it's important to always think about using these skills together. Maths questions tend to be quite wordy as well. So as we can see there from the first question, the new T-Phone Plus on contract will cost £30 a month and the contract lasts 18 months. What will the total amount payable be? And you have some options here. So the first one is £500. Next one is 300, 540, and the final one, 545. So you need to think carefully about how the question has been phrased in terms of the English, identify the key mathematical terms, and try and understand the calculation that you need to do in order to work out the correct response. Number 2. You choose the T-Phone Plus with a £30 contract. To have insurance, it will cost you 20% of your monthly payment. How much would it cost to have insurance on your phone each month? So again, you need to try and think about how has it been phrased, and then really try and strip away the actual phrases that have been used in terms of English and identify the key areas of the maths that you need to actually start working into your calculations. Number 3. Now that the phone has insurance, how much would it cost you over 12 months? So that is in terms of the actual contract as well as the insurance on top of it as well. Okay, moving on, question 4. On average, you spend 10 hours a week using your phone's mobile data. Which plan would be the best deal for you? So now if we have a look at the table, you should be able to see a number of different plans for a different amount of gigabytes, which is what we refer to when we're talking about mobile data. You can see there for plan 1, it will offer 2 gigabytes that will last between 2 to 3 hours and will cost £2.50, and then they gradually go on for each plan. So if you need to pause the video and go through these questions in more depth, please feel free to do so. We're now going to look at question 5 and move on. Look at the details for the phone contracts. Your friend is worried they won't be able to pay for the phone and the additional costs. Identify one way they could lower their bill. So here we have our phone, so it's the T Phone Plus that we looked at earlier, and here is the actual direct debit details. So the monthly cost is £30. Additional data is going to cost them £10. Insurance is going to cost them £6, and for a total cost of £46 per month. So what I'd like you to do then is think about this and think, how could they actually bring the bill down? What could they do to reduce the cost for their friend? What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the answers on the next part of the video. So if you need to pause it and take your time, please feel free to do so. These aren't supposed to be things that you're able to get straight away. Most people do take a little bit of time to work them out because it can be quite complicated as well. Class feedback. Check your answers against the ones below. So the first question then was asking us if the contract is going to cost you £30 a month and the contract lasts 18 months, what will the total amount payable be? So the correct answer there would be £540. So the calculation we needed to do was 30 times 18. Number two asked us, you choose the iPhone T Plus with a £30 contract. To have insurance, it will cost you 20% of your monthly payment. How much would it cost to have insurance on your phone each month? So the calculation we need to do here is we need to look at 30, because that is going to be how much we're paying for the phone per month, and then try to work out what is 20% of that. Now this is something a lot of people struggle with, and a real easy tip to remember to do this is just by working out what 10% of it is. So 10% of 30 is 3. Then to work out 20%, all you need to do is double that number. So the correct answer then is to insure the phone for a month, it will cost £6. So that is just to insure it. That's not including obviously the monthly payment as well. So now that we've actually figured that out, number 3 will ask us how much would the insurance cost over 12 months. So we're not just thinking about the insurance here as well, we're also thinking about the phone as well. So that's where the question can sometimes catch people out. So to work out the answer, you need to figure out first of all 30 times 12. So that is just for the phone contract, and that would equate to £360. Then when you think about the insurance on top of that, it is 6 times 12, which would work out as £72. And then obviously you need to add them together, which would give us a total of £432 in total. So you can see there how the cost is really kind of starting to stack up for us, and how these issues can be quite a serious one if you don't understand the English and maths around it. So question 4 then is talking about the mobile data. So if you spend 10 hours a week using your phone, which of the plans would have been the best one? Now if you look at the plans, the only one really available there would have been plan 4, because that is the only one that provides enough data. However, it does kind of show you how simply doing things like cutting back on your mobile data could help reduce the cost overall. Then when we look at number 5, we actually have this case study, which is quite typical when you go on to the higher value questions for both English and maths. So we need to look at the details for the phone contracts. Your friend is worried about the cost of it, and we need to give them some advice on how to actually break it down. So we could say one way they could reduce their bill is to cut down on the data they use, or not have any insurance on their phone. So either of those answers would have been acceptable, and I've gave you a mark for that question. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on, and we're going to start thinking about how we can apply our knowledge of maths and of English and to put it together to form a piece of writing. Look at the writing question and attempt the challenges that follow. Your friend or relative is thinking about getting a mobile phone contract for the first time. Write an email to them advising them on the process. In your response, you should use your understanding from the lesson to give them the best advice. Use statistics to demonstrate the best deal. Okay, so one important thing to think about, especially when you're doing level 1, level 2 functional skills, is that whenever it says in the question that you should do something, then it really means that you have to. Okay, so when it says you should do these things, It means that the things that are bullet pointed here are things that the examiner is going to be looking out for in order to actually award you marks for this question. So now that we've looked at the question, what I'd like to do is to think about what is the TAP of the question. Now we've gone through this in a few other of our lessons, so hopefully you know what this means. If you're not too sure though, don't worry too much. The TAP just simply means the topic, the audience, and the purpose. So if we look at that now, we'll actually start to identify that within the question. So the topic is what we've been talking about for the rest of the video, is about the mobile phone contracts, and also about the fact that this person's having it for the first time. Now generally, if you remember getting a phone contract or doing anything that's quite grown up for the first time, it is quite a confusing process when you first do it. So we've got to kind of think about what kind of advice would we give them based on that. It also says that we're talking to a friend or a relative, so we can assume that you can use the kind of language that we'd use with someone that you know quite well. The last one, the purpose, is advising them. This means we need to be gentle. We need to give them some advice. We don't need to be telling them and demanding what they should do or bossing them around. So you've got to look carefully whenever you're faced with a question like this and really try and think about specifically what kind of tone, what kind of things do you need to write about in your response. The super challenge. So how could you use your understanding of maths to help support your writing? So if we think, for example, of what we went through on question 5, we have to actually have all that data available, or we have to be able to speak about that data confidently in order to actually help our writing flow and sound like we know what we're talking about. And the mega challenge, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a response in the next part of the video to start thinking about how we can put this together, and hopefully you can go away now and have a go and produce your own writing response. Look at the example below and attempt the challenges that follow. So it's using the same question that we just looked at. We're just going to go through a typical response. Hi Dan, I'm glad to hear you are finally joining the rest of the world and getting your first mobile phone. I can't wait to be chatting with you. However, you need to know that getting a phone can be more complicated than you'd think. If we just look at the start of this, for example, you can see that this is quite an informal tone. The candidate has actually said hi, which isn't what you would say in more formal settings. It's using it as kind of a conversation. So that's the kind of tone you want to emulate when you write your own response. So it says then for the second paragraph, there are many deals to choose from. Did you know that buying some of the more modern phones can cost you 60% more than one of the older models? In addition, phones vary greatly depending on what you need them for. Let me get straight to the point. Buying a mobile phone can cause a lot of stress, anxiety and fear. You need to know all the facts before you make a decision. Now if we actually look at this response and we think about, how effective is it? That's what you should always be thinking when we look at model response. You can see that it has used many different techniques to make this seem quite effective. In the first paragraph, for example, it's not bossing the person around. The fact that it said hi Dan, it's normally quite a pleasant greeting. And they've said that I'm glad I'm here, that you're finally joining the rest of the world. I can't wait to be chatting with you. However, you need to know that getting a phone can be more complicated than you think. So one key detail they've included here is the word however, which is a discourse marker, which is a really good word to use if you're going to present a balanced argument. When we move on to the second paragraph, again, it's not saying you must choose this detail, it's just saying that there are many options. If the sentence starts with did you know, then we know that it should end with a rhetorical question. So there you go, we've got did you know that buying some of the more modern phones could cost you 60% more than the older models. Now this is actually a really good example of where English and maths comes together. Statistics is mainly a mathematical technique, but you can see here that we've put it together with a rhetorical question to try and say how expensive getting a mobile phone contract can be. In addition, phones vary greatly depending on what you need them for. Let me get straight to the point. Now this is a great phrase to use because what it does is it allows the candidate to use a semicolon, or a colon I should say, which is the dot and the dot. often gets confused by many students and also by teachers every now and again, apparently. So using that is considered a more advanced form of punctuation, and that would just help boost your overall response as well and make it seem that you know how to structure your writing effectively. Buying a mobile phone can cause a lot of stress, anxiety and fear. So this works really well because we've got a triplet or a group of 3 here: stress, anxiety and fear. Now a really good group of 3 will actually build in the intensity of the words. Stress is quite an unpleasant thing, anxiety is a little bit worse, and fear is probably the worst one there out of all of them. So it kind of builds to give us this sense of understanding that getting a mobile phone, even though it seems quite simple, can be quite difficult for some people. You need to know all the facts before you make a decision. So now what we'd hopefully see when the person goes away and carries on their response is that they're going to separate their ideas now into paragraphs, and they're going to focus on specific things such as choosing the best deal, how much it will cost and things like that, and all those other things that come into making an actual decision when you buy a mobile phone. If you want to attempt the question that we just looked at, then please feel free to use this example, because again, it's all about just using some things that you think work well and adapting it to your own style of writing. If you need any help or additional support, then new videos will be added every single week. Alternatively, leave us a comment, like and subscribe, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can. Please could you also check out our partner channel, Bookworm Teaching. It's a fantastic channel. There's a lot of fantastic lessons for English and just general English skills as well that can really help your learning as well. All the best, guys, and carry on working so hard. Thank you. Bye bye.